Take her for a test ride. And you'll agree. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Take her for a test ride. And you'll agree. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Single tank of kerosene. Single tank of kerosene. Single tank of kerosene. Single tank of kerosene. Single tank of kerosene.
What country did this come from?
It no longer exists, but take her for a test ride, and you'll agree. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Put it in age. Put it in age. Put it in age. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Take her for a test ride, and you'll agree. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Put it in age. Put it in age. Put it in age. Zagreb werden zloty klient. Put it in age. Put it in age. And you'll agree.
Fuck it. Fuck it. We're here. We'll start the show. It's fine. We're gonna do some quick trial by fire. Make sure that the webcam works. Turn that off. Oh my god, I haven't had a camera on in so long. Don't worry, you're not gonna have to look at me. Thankfully. I should be wearing gloves. Just totally not visible. Hey everybody. Owen here from Gaming with the Cooler. We are back for a live show. Let's see if I put this here, and we do that. We have my little painting set up here. Yeah. So I don't know, for whatever reason I could not get the camera to just flat adjust. So if I pick stuff up, it's gonna keep trying to be like, hey, look at me up close. Then it'll kind of adjust. Then it'll stop. It'll be weird, but that's just how we're gonna have to deal with it. Other than that, yeah, hey, how's everybody doing? Tonight is a classic old show where we just hang out, gonna talk to the chat. I'm gonna try and get some stuff done. So I have models laid out here. The goal is to aim for, if not completion, then all the major base codes done to get people looking like the Helldivers. So, quite a bit to get done. Why am I... What is this? Oh, just random funny stuff. Okay. Last time I saw Owen paint was the Dark Elf. Everyone gets a purple cloak. I don't even remember when that is. I can't even remember the last time I painted a Dark Elf. Yeah, so my disclaimer that I always put up whenever I'm going to paint is I'm not a painter. I do it because I feel obligated, not because I enjoy it, and not because I care if they look good. these are the colors we're using. Karak Stone, Blood Raid, Blood Angels Contrast. That one, don't know if we need the Talisar Blue, but we've got it. And then the Auric Armor Gold. I also have this brush. I don't know where it came from. It's probably the one we're going to use the most. And yeah, that's it. So we're painting dudes. I do also need... Where's my box of paint? I need my Black Templar contrast, because that also gets work done painting weapons. So I've got a couple things kind of like written aside that I'll talk about. But if anyone has any questions, thoughts, things of that nature, feel free. I've got the chat open here so I can see what's going on. Oh, it's already starting. And I'll try and keep up while grinding through these. Now, this is where I'm comfortable painting. Do you guys actually care about seeing the paint job itself? That's the question. Do I need to adjust? Okay, camera, please don't break. Oh, oh, oh. I don't know. Like that? But maybe? Whatever. We'll just get some paint on these guys. So the scheme, I guess the first thing I'll go over is all of the clothing pieces, like the pants, the sleeves of the shirt, the boots. Those are just getting a, I'm gonna say Zenithal Prime. It's basically just black and then gray spray paint from like a 45-degree angle. Do that to the whole model, and then use the Basilicum Gray and go over all of the clothing bits in the contrast, just kind of get the paint on there fashion. After that, you hit the armored pieces, so you're talking the helmet, the shoulder pads, the chest plate, the back plate with the Karak Stone. Then you hit the gun with the Black Templar contrast. And then wash the whole model with Nuln Oil. And you've got to do the fleshy bits, which I forgot about. I'll probably use like elf flesh or something. Wash the whole model in Nuln Oil, and then go back over and do a quick little dry brush or something on the shoulder pads with the Karak Stone again. Now that it's darker, then you'll get a little bit of something. If there's a power weapon, paint the whole thing white, like Wraithbone white or Stone white or whatever. Doesn't need to be very nice looking, because you're then going to hit it with the Talus blah 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 da blue, and then you do the hilt with the Auric gold. If it's a power fist, you do the entire fist with gold, and then Nuln Oil it back down again. And that's kind of the scheme. Still figuring out what I'm going to do with the tanks. I think I'm going to go airbrush them tomorrow. I was originally thinking of like a Zenithal plus dry brush, but then I'm like, I don't know, it's not really going to have a matching kind of color. I don't know, so we'll come back to that one. Okay. Here we go. On computer games, have I checked out a game called Contagion? It's a fun, free zombie game based on a Half-Life 2 mod. I have not. The only video game that I've been playing recently is Dan and I are playing Company of Heroes 2. That is the only game we've played. I have some obscene amount of time now into that game, and I'm still not very good at it. Also, I paint in a very assembly line fashion, where it's just one dude, one color, next dude, same color, next dude, same color, and then come back and do the whole thing again. And that's just the way it is. The goal is to get through 20 Guardsmen over the course of the next, like, 2-ish hours. Depends on how long and how distracted I get talking. Inherently, I'm going to be painting slower because I'm talking, which is par for the course, but I haven't done a painting stream in so long, and I said that I would do a stream this weekend, and therefore I did. So here we are. The trick I find to these paint schemes is like find something that you can easily replicate and then just do that. Like it doesn't need to look like the friggin' masterclass stuff that you see online. Like just have a consistent bunch of dudes. That's all you need to have painted. How are things? Do you ask Chris for any advice or help on what to use and how to get the effect you want when you paint? For years, Chris tried to give me advice on how to paint and how to do things, and no, mostly I for example, like Mike is another person. So if you go to Epic Duck Mike, he streams on Twitch and does a whole bunch of painting tutorials for like Relic Blade and Riot Quest and all that kind of stuff. I've asked him like, hey, well, I've asked Chris too, but I've asked them like, hey, I want to paint like this. How do? And then they'll be like, yeah, no problem. So you're going to want to do like a thin base coat of this, and then you do a layering effect of this, and then you're going to want to hit it with this, and then once you've done that, go back over it with this color, and then you're going to wash it, but only like a light wash, and then you're going to dry brush that part back up again, and then you hit it with another layer. And I'm like, okay, take what you just said and cut it down to like 2 steps. And you do that enough times, and painters are like, just do whatever you want. So I have, and no. Some of these guys still have some yellow peeking through from when I reprimed them. As some of you know, I have a very yellow Imperial Fist-esque Imperial Guard army. I did not like... This is one of the older, I guess, armies I have at this point, or at least one of the ones I spent the least time effectively painting. And it's kind of bothered me because it never really got finished. Like, the bases never got done, the tanks never got done. There were parts of it that just never got finished on it. And I wanted to go back and finish the job, but I don't really like to go back to projects. Like, I don't like touching things up or doing it. Like, once I'm done, like, once the model's down, that's it. I'm done. Have a good one, Johnston. All right, let's go to the next question. How do you feel about 9th? 9th is just 8th edition again. Only the foxes are in the hen house, and the rules for ITC have bled themselves into the real game. So now you have secondaries written right into the rule book. You've got the rule of 3, like, legitimate in the book. Obviously, I know you can play non-match play games, blah, blah, blah. No one plays non-match games. Everyone plays match play games. If you're going to the hobby shop, you're not playing a fucking narrative game. You're going to be playing a match play game. So those are the rules as it is. 9th edition is just 8th edition. The biggest change, and I think this is one that we'll have to see how it plays out, is going to be the change to the way detachments work. Because I think it's the biggest 180 switch out of anything in the game, where you went from more detachments is a benefit to more detachments is a negative. With that, I thought they wouldn't bother with the rule of 3, because if you wanted to like really crazily spam, you're going to punish yourself in command points. But I guess not. So I think that's the biggest thing that we'll have to wait and see how it kind of waters out. Now, I'm not one to actually follow the 40k meta. I don't follow what's good. I don't follow what's fun. Every now and again, it'll come up where I'll, like, through osmosis, basically, like, people I know care about 40k, and therefore they will tell me about the thing that happened in the 40k that is the big hotness, like the Smash Captain for Blood Angels, for example. And like the Flyrant spam and stuff like that that was implemented to try and then that like the things that were the basis of the rules that came around that I hate. But I don't really follow it, but we'll have to see. Like I said, I think that's the biggest change to 9th edition, is just the reversal on detachments being negatives. That and Yannari don't exist anymore as a faction. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on 9th. I've actually had some fun with it, though. I actually went to like my hobby shop and played games there. I don't usually go and just play games of 40k. Occasionally I'd go to a tournament or something, but otherwise I would just play with Ash, and we would play whatever we felt like playing for videos. But 9th edition kind of got me excited again for it, and it's been nice seeing people play different things, because everyone's kind of wanting to try new things, even though I don't think it really justifies trying those new things, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so that's the short of it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. It's going to develop. Currently, the game is the same. Mechanically, it is the same game. Nothing has really changed. There's a few meta changes, a few wording changes that kind of cleared some things up. The only limit of a 1 mod is relevant. Like, for example, you can only have a maximum of +1 or -1 overall to any roll that you do. So you're not going to have guys who stack like -4 to hit, -4 to damage, +3 to wound, stuff like that. Which I think is overall good. I don't really like those kind of things, because they don't take into consideration the value of the unit. Like, for example, it works in Age of Sigmar because a good unit that benefits, like a good unit will always hit on a good number, and then you can modify it kind of down a bit. Whereas because 40k fluctuates based on both models' involvement, it kind of fucks with that a bit. I guess hitting is a stat that's flat, but wounding is not. So like a toughness value of a monster is really relevant until you find out that, like, oh well, Blood Angel gets +1, and then I do this and I do that, and I wound everything in the game on 2s because that's how I am. I'm strength 9 with +1 to wound. That kind of shit. Which inherently, I guess I don't have that big of a problem with. But it gets kind of obnoxious, especially if you're getting into the game and you're like, I like my big, huge monster. And then it's like, yeah, I'm going to auto-kill it in 1 attack, and you can't defend yourself against it. Ba-da-ba. Do I think 9th will help or hinder the Guard, especially their artillery or tanks? I don't know where Guard were before. I think all tanks got a buff because the change to being able to shoot into melee. I think that's really good. I think the wild card buff, and you'll see this in an army that I'm going to be playing relatively soon, is the fact that in the Imperial Guard faction now, heavy bolters and heavy flamethrowers cost the same points. So in my mind, that just said heavy bolters have now been removed from the faction. Because why would you take a heavy bolter when you could take a heavy flamethrower? Whereas before it was like 10 points to like 19. It's now 15 for both. And so you're in an instance where you're like, oh, I guess every tank has a heavy flamethrower or 3. Because I know I can always shoot them in melee. I know I'll never have to suffer any enemy abilities on it. And it's the same strength, same AP, but I'm likely to get more shots than a heavy bolter. Oh, it's shorter range? Sure, whatever. So I think that's an interesting change. Other than that, like, blast weapons are blast weapons. People are upset, like, oh no, this might not be as effective, or this would be more effective, or blah blah blah. Whatever. Just go back to templates. Who cares at this point? Am I going to add a happy little tree to any of them? I don't know what that's a reference to. But probably not. I'm currently painting a guard army with the infantry will be the World War I French blue with World War II French camo on the tanks. That's a lot of work. Good luck. Painting Mad Robot Vanderbilt. Don't know what that is. While I generally enjoy painting, I totally understand people not having fun with that part of the hobby, says Dr. Danko86. Yeah, I don't enjoy painting. I don't find it, like, people talk about it being like, oh, it's relaxing and it's calming, and it's like, oh, I just enjoy creating this little miniature piece of art. No, I do it because you should have a painted army when you play. I don't enjoy it. I don't have fun with it. I don't care too much about it. I just want to get it done. I'm not willing to pay somebody to do it, though. I don't think the value is there, in my opinion. It's too easy to paint an army that can look fine. It doesn't take enough effort, in my opinion. Now, there's reasons to do it, I guess. Like, I can understand that, but just in my perspective, it's like, but you can just spray paint them the color, wash them, or now contrast them, and then dry brush it, and you're done. Like, why would you spend X hundreds of dollars to end up in the same place? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But, like I said, to each their own. Oh, it's a Bob Ross reference. I see. I don't follow the Bob Ross references that well. This guy clearly got a, like, Terminator hand at some point down the road. Terminator? Maybe just a Space Marine. I don't know. I got a lot of models from all over the place. Do I think Ossiarch Bone Reapers are more balanced now that they changed a bit? So, for those of you that don't know, this is Daniel Horton asking this question. Ossiarch Bone Reapers recently got an errata in an update that fundamentally changed their army and the strength balance in their faction. What it was Petrifex Elite. Oh, shit. What was it exactly? I can tell you what it used to do. One sec, let me see if I can find it. I just had this open the other day. Photos. Oh my god, I have so much random shit. Here it is. Okay. Petrifex Elite. So what Petrifex Elite used to do, this is for an Age of Sigmar Skelly faction, was models with this trait gained +1 to saves, +1 to armor saves. Super powerful. For those of you that know 40k or Age of Sigmar, imagine if you had a faction benefit. So no cost to you, no limits on what you can do. Your army gains +1 to saves. Always. Melee, shooting, doesn't matter. +1 to saves. Absolutely ridiculous. It was so head and shoulders above everything else in that army book. You'd have to have, like, worked really hard to find a gimmick to justify not playing Petrifex Elite. What Petrifex Elite now does is reroll save rolls of 1 for attacks made with melee weapons that target Petrifex Elite units. So basically they get reroll 1s in melee, and that's it. That takes Petrifex Elite and just shoots it in the shin compared to what it was. Now, I don't think that's bad. I think it still puts Petrifex Elite as a solid choice. Like, put that in any faction. You just get reroll 1s to saves in melee all the time for nothing, just for showing up. And then you still get access to their special trait, which gave them additional rend. Blah, 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 blah. Their warlord trait that made them shrug 1 wound in each phase, which was phenomenal. Like, that was no, that wasn't the trait. That was the relic, I think, something like that. Anyway, moral of the story is, absolutely changes the nature of the faction, where you've got reasons to play something other than Petrifex Elite now, and that's interesting. I don't know if it, like, fixes them. I don't think they were broken per se, other than the fact that their codex was internally broken. As you guys will know, and based on the factions I play even, you'll see that I like to have a lot of diversity inside of my own army book. I'm a fan of your faction should be able to play in different styles. So like Guard, for example, have a million ways you can play. You can tank spam, artillery spam, armored company, infantry slog, armored horde, super heavy tanks, flyers. Like you can bring different types of armies. Gloomspite gets, you've got the goblins, spiders, squigs, trogs, and then any combination thereof, including like a wizard spam composition. You've got lots of choices. The bad side with Petrifex Elite is you have all of these options, all these interesting things where your guys like explode on death and they don't run away and blah blah blah. All of it is irrelevant when standing against entire army is 16% more survivable at all times. Like 16% of your army will not die where it otherwise would have, period. And that was just bananas. It was like you guys who have seen some of my Age of Sigmar videos saw me play a little bit of this before I sold my Bone Reapers off, where Nagash had a 2+ save just for showing up. That was just, he just gets that, and it put him into hilariously powerful standing. So yeah, I'm glad they've made a change. I don't know if this is the way I would have gone about it, because it negates the benefits of some units. Because like Petrifex or Mortec Guard, their ability is to reroll saves in melee. So you end up in this weird instance where you're kind of getting lesser value on the guys who are your core like troops. But like I would have gone about it where you reduce the rend characteristic by 1, or rend 1 doesn't make a difference. That's kind of the way I would have gone with Petrifex Elite, where your guys are still really good, but you're only benefiting against people who are also really good, where shitty units are not hampered against you. That's kind of my perspective, but whatever, this is interesting. We'll see how it plays out. It might have been too powerful the way I was describing it as well. But anyway, that's how I feel about that. Roy. Hi, Owen. I know you guys play a lot of games. What's my favorite skirmish level rule set? My favorite skirmish level rule set. So I guess we have to kind of establish what a skirmish level game is. Because like, for example, is Infinity a skirmish level game? Like, kinda. You're only using maybe 10 to 15 models, but you need an incredible amount of terrain, and it's played on a full-size board. So maybe? I mean, War Machine pretended to be a skirmish game for a long time there, when it was clearly just a battle, like, war game. When you have 30 to 60 models on the board. Like 40k is more of a skirmish game than War Machine was at the end of it. I guess it's not over yet, but you know what I mean. I think out of all of the rule sets that I've played that are small scale, a few kind of stand above. It depends what you want. If you want like a mechanically solid game where models do what they should do based on how strong they are, and it has really consistent rules, probably Relic Blade wins out on that run, where it's very easy to teach somebody how to play Relic Blade. It's just D6s, there's no fun stuff like that, and it's just roll higher the game. But there's enough going on that it's not just roll higher the game, in that you're able to mod and affect and change out the way those rolls are going to go to a pretty significant degree. If you're looking for more of a game that's got some theme and spirit behind it, rather than just mechanical prowess, I mean, Mordheim will always stand as like the king of feeling in it, which is an interesting thing I talked about. I didn't really talk about it too much, but I mentioned it when somebody was talking a while back on one of the live streams about Mordheim getting remade, and how I don't think there's a remake of Mordheim that actually works. Because the appeal of Mordheim isn't the rule set. Like, it kind of is, because you really like that injury table. But the rules in Mordheim are pretty weird. They're pretty old. They're not really up to date. And so, like, the thing that you're really into is the theme, is the story of this, like, ragtag bunch in this dark middle European Dark Ages kind of monster hellhole where they're just trying to survive, and everyone feels like they're like poor and desperate, and It's just the feeling of Mordheim. Like when you talk to somebody about what does it feel like, even the name is called friggin' Mordheim, like Death City. Like that's really neat. And if you remade it, unless you're just remaking the identical game, you're not going to carry over the thing that is the most interesting thing in Mordheim. So, and they didn't even try. Like when they made Warcry, they didn't even try and make that. I think that's the reason also I don't care for Warcry, is it doesn't have the feeling, because your guys don't have that like carryover between games. I think the campaign system barely exists, and it makes it hard to be interested in it. And because like the mechanics are so bare bones that like, okay, that's what happens this round. Like I don't know. It is what it is. I haven't played a ton of Warcry, so I don't want to talk too much about mechanics, because you got to really dig deep to figure that shit out. Where are we? What are my thoughts of GW potentially resurrecting old world Warhammer fantasy in the future? What would you like to see? I mean, haha, to all those people that burn their armies. Shit's funny. Other than that, like, I don't really care. That's cool if they bring it back. I hope they bring out like other factions that didn't exist prior, or if they would let the factions that have died off in Age of Sigmar come back as factions in Old World. Like if you let the Dispossessed become their own faction again, or you brought back Bretonnia, like I would like to see that. And then get into the weird stuff, get into the Far East factions, and get into, like, they're already talking about it with getting Kislev as like a full I know Kislev existed at one point, but like, you know what I mean, really fleshing out factions that didn't really have a place in the old Warhammer. I think that's the way to go about it. And trying to clean up the rank and flank rules for like modern gaming. Something that makes it move a little faster. Something that, like, I think Conquest has a really good system of getting units up and like incentivizing you for rushing forward, because your reserves are going to come in closer to the front because your guys control that section of the board. Shit like that. I think that's important. All right. I need a drink. So yeah, that's what I want to see. Mad Party makes 3 third-party Van Saar. Mine are being painted as Freeman. Oh, I see what you're saying. I understood the Freeman reference, but I didn't understand, like, what are we talking about? What's your take on the Primaris updates and the totally not Predator tank and the soft squatting of the OG Marines? Fuck the OG Marines. The fucking Primaris Marines are so much nicer than OG Marines. Like, seeing them stand next to each other, especially when they're painted, they are so fucking cool in comparison that that of course they're gonna replace them. Like, and I'm glad for it. Now, I'm also appreciative that they didn't nuke the faction, that you can still play. Is this already in? Is this even in focus? It kind of is. The quality of the video during the live stream is a little bit down. The nice thing is they haven't nuked all of the old Marines. You can still play them. You still have access to all your vehicles. You can still use all your toys. Maybe there's a few pieces here and there that are starting to fade away, but for the most part, old factions, or your old army, still works. And that's, I think, the best way of going about it. Yeah, you're not going to get any new stuff for the old boys. You're going to keep getting new Primaris stuff that's the high-tech, sleek-looking hover shit. I don't know if I care about hover tanks, but whatever. That's their design. But just like a look of like a Primaris Intercessor standing next to a the last generation of regular Warhammer 40k Space Marines. Like, he's so cool looking. Like, he's bigger and beefier, and he's got the armor and the big gun, and I can see you commenting further down there, Orange Crowbar Man. There's been a shift away from the grimdark gothic aesthetic. They don't feel like Space Knights anymore. To you? I think this is a thing that's going to fix itself over time, right? Like, go look at the original Space Marines. They don't feel like Space Knights, but they slowly developed into that as the sub-factions of them developed. Like, Black Templars and Dark Angels are clearly Space Knights. But, like, Ultramarines were never really Space Knights. Ultramarines were always clean. Now, people shit on Ultramarines because of probably that reason, that it's not grimdark enough. And the new Primaris Marines dip into that pretty heavy because they're just clearly Ultramarines, but for every faction. I think as you get time, you're going to get more units that come out that really break that up. Like, I think the Assault Intercessors, the chainsword wielding super bolt pistol guys, are wild. Like, those guys are crazy for style points. They look like Khorne Berserkers, but in Space Marines. Like, you could give those guys little tabards and little, like, wings and shit, and they would be amazing looking models. And I think that's really cool. And, like, you even call out here, the Blade Guard are the new exception. Lots of cool stuff coming out for Primaris. I think it's just a case that they started with the basic super soldier dude, and now the variants are coming out. You already got the super heavy one in the aggressors. We got a bit of the fast one using the infiltrators, and now we're getting the berserker one in the assault guys. That leaves us, and we got the bikes, which are also amazing. Yeah, so there you go. I missed some chats there because the chat started moving along. You played a bit of it, but I never really got an idea of how you felt about the PC Mordheim City of the Damned. It's fine. I liked it to some degree. I probably won't play it again, though. It was fun for a while, and then you kind of go like, I don't want to play this anymore. Lots of grinding. The Dreg called Raul. I don't remember what his name was. It was a Dreg, though. I do remember that. No interest in making your own game? Also, hello. Hello, Color Out of Space. Maybe. Maybe there's something happening in the background. Maybe I'm also doing... If I'm going to sit here and talk shit and say what I think is good and bad, I might throw my hat in the ring. But we'll see. Paint up some of my Dreadfleet box set alongside your stream. You ever played? Nah, I never played the Dreadfleet. I always saw it, but I never played it. Seems cool. I had an option to buy it not too long ago for really cheap, but then it was like, when the fuck am I ever going to play this? So I opted not to. Alright, that was enough of a break. I mean, the Space Marine Heroes made it a little better, but if they redid the Mini Marine, I would be happy. They won't redo the Mini Marine. They did. His name is Primaris. Like, I'm sorry. If you really wanted that, you're not going to get it, because those days are over. The scale is going up. The points are going up. Less models that look bigger and look cooler. That's the future. The writing's on the wall, guys. Bigger models. Bigly everywhere. Even the Necron Warriors. They're huge. Compared to the old Necron Warriors. They're on 32s. Like, if you looked at my guys, and they looked a little like, oh, those are pretty beefy. Keep in mind, those are 32 mil bases. Those are bigger than the 25s that they used to be on. And yet they still look like they fill it. Really do look like the look of the Reavers. Reavers are cool too, with the axe and the grenade guy and like the medic, the zip lines. I think the only thing I think the Primaris are really suffering from right now that needs to get a fix is diversity within the units. So right now, when you bring a unit of Primaris Marines, whatever that unit is, it does that thing. And the old Tactical Marines' whole jam was the fact that they were jack of all trades troops. They could bring a missile, they could bring a flamethrower, they could bring a whatever. And right now, they tend to do only one thing. It cuts down on the ability to convert them, it cuts down on the ability to have choices in them. And I think that's a downer that I hope they course correct on later on and make you know what I would probably do, actually, with the Intercessors, or like the Primaris Marines in general, if I was looking for a solution to that wouldn't involve me having to retcon and rebuild all of the Primaris box sets, is I'd come out with like a group of guys who were special weapon unit attachments to all other Primaris units. Like, you buy a box set of these guys, let's say there's 5 of them, and you get like 15 different weapon options, and you can attach X, like 5, for every 5 guys, you gain X of these guys in your unit, and they can carry whatever type of weapon that you want them to carry. That's probably the way I would go about it. Because then your Ultramarines, your Primaris Marines will have that kind of changing it up and make your army really modular. It'd be hard to balance, but I don't think they care that much. And it'd be cool, and that's good enough for me. Maybe make exceptions, and then you like change it up where certain factions get bonuses. Like you get these special weapon attachments, and like one of them is like thunder hammers or something. But then you wouldn't buy another box of models. Well, maybe you would, because then you'd buy both. You'd have the box, and then you have the support detachment or something like that, where they have all the different weapon upgrades. Wouldn't that require a rebalance of transport capacity though? That's just a change in the text. They were willing to totally obliterate the balancing within the Ossiarch Bone Reapers Codex in a one-line thing of purple text. They don't give a fuck. You could just change it. Change the capacity to 1 or 7 or 12 or 15 or whatever fuck number it needs to be. You think they go like Deathwatch where you get a mix of melee and shooting? I don't know. I wouldn't do it that way. Like I said, and then what I would do is I'd make those units like these sub attachments. Depending on your chapter, you'd get access to different numbers of them. So like, if you're playing Space Wolves, your specialist troop for the Primaris Marines, he has access to Wolf Claws, and not only that, instead of 1 per 5, you can bring 2 out of 5. But only if they're in Assault's Intercessors. Shit like that. You could end up having chapters that you don't need as many pages of rules to give them their own feeling. Where it's like, oh, if I bring Assault Intercessors, like 4 out of 8 of them are going to have terrifying lightning claws, and then blah 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 blah. Or if you're playing Ultramarines, they get a bonus that applies to all the I don't know. You get what I mean though. There's anything you could do. Reavers. Nothing touches the sheer aesthetic of Terminators. Yeah, Terminators make me sad. Terminators should have been 3 wounds. There's too many -1 damage 2 weapons. Absolutely fucks them up. Though with the change to Storm Shields, that might fix that. You might see a resurgence of Terminators with 1 or 2 Storm Shield guys, because now all of a sudden they can fight the things that have been auto-killing them all across the map. Alright, there's 20 with the black. What time is it? 45. Alright, so we did that in about 40 minutes. Though I did take a break, so that's not too bad. I have a few characters that we need to paint up. Like this little boy. We're going to paint up our officer. We'll paint up a commissar. You're fine the way you are. We'll just dry brush your base. Do I want to paint up my tech marines? Maybe. Officer of the fleet. Yeah, we're not going to do them yet. I think we'll just do these 3. Alright, let's scroll back down on the chat here. How do I feel about the Overwatch rule? Do you think it hinders more than anything? I think that's fine. Overwatch, whatever. It is what it is. We're basically gone all the way back to 4th edition. We didn't have Overwatch. So, there you go. It'll just change the way it plays. I hate that you're right about rebalancing the transport. Yeah, you just fucking retype that. Like, that's easy. And then you could even like, yeah, that's nothing. That's not a fix. That's just rules. You can change rules, no problem. Fuck, they don't even print all the rules in the books anymore. You can buy that Space Wolf Codex and miss a page. So, anywho, that's that. What about replacing a sergeant with a specialist like that? I think it should be an addition to. I think you should open up the options that the sergeants get. Give them weird shit like thunderhammers and stuff, which are already headed down that direction, and then give these guys additional attachments so that they can really change up the feeling of how the squad acts, not just that one guy in the squad. That's just my opinion. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Probably none of it. This is just me rambling about what I would like to see. That would be a nice incentive to add value to your already existing primary squads. Like, for all of you who have gone out and bought 1 or 2 squads of intercessors or reavers or whatever it is that you bought, maybe they were part of a starter set, whatever. But you're like, I don't really need 12 guys with bolt guns. Like, that doesn't really do anything for me. But a missile launcher with a couple bolt guns, looking like an old Devastator squad, but not really. That's pretty cool. And you give them Primacy versions of this stuff. So you have like a slightly better missile launcher. Then people will buy it. You just do that. Did I see the new Twilight expansion? Oh my god. We've been going back and forth on that for like days now. Been showing all of the new little characters and commanders. TI is Twilight Imperium. Twilight Imperium is a board game that I actually play quite a bit, for all the people who talk about how Twilight Imperium is like this monster of a game that you never get to play or never get to finish. I play probably every couple months, and we play those games to completion basically every time. People I play with, different groups, and we play it on Tabletop Simulator a lot because we live far away and things like that. But occasionally we get together in person. But Twilight Imperium 4 is getting, 4th edition rather, not 4, is getting a new expansion this Christmas season. And it adds a lot of really interesting stuff. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm not really going to comment on it because it's not out and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yes, I am excited to answer your question. Makes me laugh when people think GW honestly cares about competitive meta. You are playing the wrong game. I don't think any game should really listen to the competitive meta. I don't think that the meta really feeds into a good gameplay experience overall. GW, I think, is listening to the competitive meta. It's the reason why the scenarios and the missions have all changed in this latest edition. And that's something that kind of makes me go, where did this come from? Because, like, I always look at it from the scope of, this is a business that needs to sell models in order to continue to be a business. So, like, if I want to be able to play 40k, I need to buy 40k models, and GW needs to sell 40k models. And expensive or not, that's just what they charge, and, like, that's the price of being able to play the game. And the rule of 3 is such a weird, like, really weird thing to exist from, like, a selling perspective, because it limits the amount of things that you can potentially sell to each person. And I don't know why they're going that way. Like, it's clearly to appease match play and tournament players, and I know you can say, like, oh, well, you just play narrative play. No one fucking plays narrative play if you go to the hobby shop to play the game. Now, yes, collectors are going to just buy and paint whatever the fuck they want anyway, but collectors don't usually buy and paint the same model 7 times. So it doesn't really mean anything to them. And so you end up in this weird situation where people who used to buy a spam of something, either because they were making a gimmick or a theme, or because they were power gaming and they wanted to just play the meta, they can't do that anymore. And every person who otherwise would have bought X number more boxes is now only going to buy 3 boxes, because there's no reason to buy another box beyond that unless you're just wanting to have things to sit on the shelf. And I found it so odd that this exists in the current rules. And, like, say what you will, that is a direct attack on their ability to sell models. And I don't get it. It has to be that they want to help curate the meta, like, it makes me wonder if they want to do something like esports-y, like they want to make like a competitive scene for their game and like monetize it from a video format. Like, you see everything else kind of going that direction in video games. Maybe GW looks at that and goes like, hey, if we can make a really tight competitive game, we can stream it, we can get onto the online world, we can build like sponsorships and stuff, and that will sell more miniatures. Like, maybe that's the like long-term goal there. I don't know what's going on behind there, but it feels really weird to me. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, just something that's really odd in my opinion. How do I feel about Star Wars Legion? I'll come back to whatever I wanted to talk about, Daniel, later on to answer your question. I have no idea. I didn't play Star Wars Legion. I don't give a fuck about Star Wars. I only like Star Wars to make fun of Star Wars. I like Star Wars ironically, because I'm that person. Thanks for the constant GNAP FFAM1K Kaz3. Hi Owen, thanks for the constant great work together with Ash. You both show that in the end the most important thing is having fun when playing miniature games. I mean, especially when you're going to play with that same person again. Like, you can be super competitive if you're going to go and play at a tournament. But if you want to go play with those people again, like, you're not playing one game. You're playing a series of games over the course of your relationship of playing games. So if you're a dickbag in those games, you're not going to get to play more games. And that's losing in the long term for a short-term victory. I would wager GW do care about the comp meta because tooling yourself for comp brings in more income. Guard laughs the rule of 3 with Squadrons of Russ and Squadrons in general. Well, there you go. Like, that even adds into my opinion of, like, it's such a weird thing because, like, it clearly has these connotations that are, like, there's things that break those rules, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I don't care. Are you disappointed that Privateer Press didn't announce a new edition for War Machine and Hordes? Started with Company of Iron, but now the game seems super dead, at least in Germany. Has there been an update to Company of Iron at all? I don't know. I have not followed War Machine or Privateer Press in quite some time, I'll be honest with you. I really appreciated War Machine for what it was. I thought the game was pretty good. I'm interested in seeing what they do with the mechanics in Warcaster that they're coming out with, the sci-fi version. It bums me out that it's sci-fi. I don't want another sci-fi game. I like fantasy sword and board stuff more, but we'll see. I got burned out based on the people who play War Machine. It is a tedious, pain-in-the-ass game, and it is not fun to play anymore. Not at any kind of competitive level. It's more fun to play the less you know. If you play War Machine with a bunch of people who don't know how to play all that well, and you also don't know how to play all that well, War Machine's a great game. If you play War Machine where everyone knows exactly what everyone can do, it's a fucking nightmare. It takes so long, and it's so stressful, and it's so, like, tedious. It is what it is. The rule of 3 might be an attempted flavor. If I recall correctly, most real military formations are a headquarters and then 3 of whatever the actual fighting force is. Well, I'm not going to make a statement about what real military is like, but what I will say is that if you had the attempt to try and balance your factions based on that, why don't you do something like, say, a force organization chart that would determine how many of which type of unit you get, rather than a force organization chart that you can just blatantly ignore and bring unlimited of whatever unit type, to the point where you had to make another rule limiting the amount of units when you already had a rule that limited the amount of units. Like, if you had a problem where people were spamming flying hive tyrants, why did you make it where someone could bring 9 HQs? Like, just don't have that as a rule. The new force, like, and that's why I brought it up early on, that, like, I thought with the way they were going, where detachments were going to punish you for bringing more, that would make it that the rule of 3 was no longer relevant, because, yeah, it's true, you could bring those 9 flying hive tyrants, but it's going to cost you, like, 8 of your 12 CPs in order to do so. Is it worth it then? Maybe, but you're not going to have your abilities. Your last stream was about moving on, you moving job, moving channel, moving videos you're making. I did change jobs. I start a new job next week. Gonna be good. We'll see how it goes. It has a lot better hours, as in like the shifts that I work at it are much nicer and much more conducive to like being a healthy functioning human, rather than randomly waking up, randomly going to bed at different times throughout the week, because your shifts vary by 10 hours start times, which made it much more difficult to make content and do things because you're never knowing when things are going to have to change. So yeah, we'll see. I'd like to make more content consistently for you guys going forward. I make no promises because you never know how life's going to go, but I've taken some steps to try and really change up the way I'm working and where I'm working so that I'm able to do things that I like doing, like making videos and going outside and sleeping consistently. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on that front. Doesn't mean I'll be able to stream more. Ostensibly, yes. I might even start like a Sunday stream, because I will never have to work a Sunday, bar like weird exceptions, which is nice. Yeah, so that's all I'm really going to talk about on that topic. I think I've caught up with the chat at this point. Currently, as a painting update for those of you that are listening and not watching, we have completed the pants section of these 20 guardsmen, and we've moved on to the armor plates. So we've kicked open the Karak stone, and we're painting shoulder pads, helmets, chest piece, back piece, and shin guards on the boots. That's the step we're at right now. And we are 7 guys in on that. They're more or less just useless. Yeah, fucking force organization charts. Those kill me. So here's one that I wanted to talk about. I'll take this off my list because I've now caught up to the chat. We're going to talk about 3D printing and miniature gaming, because this has recently come up in my local environment. Now, as you guys know who follow my Facebook page, you guys know that I have a 3D printer. I have an Ender 3 Pro. It cost me a couple $100. Well, it was actually a gift, so that's nice, but it was a few $100s. And I have been working pretty diligently over the course of months now, spending lots of my time and some money, because it's pretty easy to maintain, figuring out exactly how to get results from my 3D printer. And I have no interest in selling things. I have no interest in making a business out of it. It's entirely just a funsies thing for myself. So those of you who recently saw the battle report between Ash and I with my 5 million goblin army, those movement trays that those goblins were all on were things that I had made. I printed them, I had set it up, programmed it, blah, 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 blah. And I made little 10-man movement trays for my goblins to wander around in. And they're super handy. They're nice little convenient things. That being said, where do people stand? And I'm going to talk a little bit about my opinions of where this goes, but I'll put the question out there for. What happens when you have things like this? That's a fake tank. Where does that go? What happens when those start showing up everywhere? What happens when it becomes really common? And what do you say? Do you say that no, you can't do that? Do you say we're not going to allow 3D printing? Then you go, okay, okay. What about conversions? Can you use parts from other models to make a model? What if I printed those parts off? Does that count? How much of the original model needs to be there? So it gets kind of into the realm of X amount % of the model needs to be the original model before it becomes legitimate or illegitimate. And I don't know. Like I don't know where that goes long term, because I think 3D printing and miniature games go hand in hand. So, well, you know what? Here, I'm gonna ramble about 3D printing in general as a hobby, as someone who's been like just touching my toe into it. I'm no like you can go look. There's tons. There's tons of videos out there and people who are very experienced in understanding about 3D printing and all of the aspects to it. But I've been touching my toe into it. I've been learning and researching and practicing myself and that kind of thing. And I view 3D printers as the early 90s home computer, where there's a lot you can do with an early 90s home computer, but they're kind of hard to use, and a lot of people, you're not going to be able to find a justification for spending a couple $100s to have this thing that's a giant pain in the ass. And like, what are you even going to use it for? You can just send a letter. You can just buy a dishwasher or just buy a dish. Like, why would you get a 3D printer? What you need to have happen is what happened to PC computers, in that they become really easy to maintain, and they come preloaded with everything that you need in them. Gonna need GW approved models to play. I'll come back to that one too. Like, you need to make a printer that can show up ready to go with preloaded blueprints in it, preloaded STLs, that it will print reliably and consistently without much input from the person outside of it. And it's only going to get cheaper and more refined, where they're more and more user-friendly as time goes on. So they're going to become more common, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to go the way of VR, where it was more of like a fad, because there's a lot of practical uses for them that you can't really benefit from, because they're too friggin' esoteric right now to actually use effectively for people who aren't willing to spend the time figuring out how the friggin' punch cards work, to go back to my old computer analogy. But the value's there. Like, it's waiting. You just need to figure it out. Whoever it is that figures it out. I'm not a mechanical engineer that can figure that out, and making an idea is cheap. So who cares? But back to miniature gaming and 3D printing. There's two perspectives on this one. First off, one is that I think people who will print and sell models that are copies of models, that are profiting off of design of models, that should be illegal. You should get cracked down on for doing shit like that. Like, if someone was to make, like, here's a Lehman Russ. This is identifiably a Lehman Russ. If someone were to make a design of a Lehman Russ and then distribute it for money, they should be held accountable for illegally stealing, like, a copyright. I think that's appropriate. Somebody, you can say what you will, but somebody had to go out and design that model artistically and structurally and sell it, and I like all the kind of shit that goes into that. And this guy's just basically taking the identifiable nature of it, because like, people aren't going to 3D print that because they just wanted that model. They're going to 3D print it because it looks a lot like the actual model, which is a difference. I think that should be called out, and I think you should report even. I would go so far as to say you should report people who are selling and profiting off of the effort of other people. So, what do you do next when people don't charge for them? Because now you have a person who doesn't profit off of it and is making something. So this is like your tabletop simulator issue, where a hosting network shares a bunch of files that could be anything that just look like something that is a legal item from someone else. And you go, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but it seems like it'd be crazy difficult to deal with. But in a more like personal oh yeah, and then what about models that are no longer available? Hey, what about, that was Gel who talked about that, or Jelly, Jelle. What about models that don't exist anymore? What about models made by companies that don't exist? Or what about models from model ranges that are no longer being produced? Cough, cough, Battlefleet Gothic. Is that okay? Well, who knows, right? But yeah, what happens to local hobby shop when 3D printers are becoming ubiquitous, where people don't need to go to the hobby shop to get miniatures, they can just print them at home? And I know it sounds like far off and stuff, but it's not that far away. You just need to cut down the cost by maybe another $200 and then find a way to make them really, even if you didn't cut down the cost, just make them more accessible. Make them really easy to use and really reliably made. And you're gonna get a sea of people buying these things. They're already being bought up all over the place. Like, I see a 3D printer ad, or I see someone talking about 3D printers every friggin' day, and that's relevant. Like, now I'm obviously going to be shown these ads more than most people will, because I have talked about it, and my fucking cell phone probably records my conversations for all that matter. So I'm going to be in those circles, but I'm sure you guys see them too. I'm sure you guys who are in miniatures will see 3D printers. That fucking cubic whatever, the resin one, that thing's in my Facebook feed every 5 minutes. They're going to get everywhere. So what do you do about that? You just say, no, you can't use those. You got to buy the models at my shop. Like, I can understand and appreciate that, even respect it, because, like, hey, I want to be able to play at this shop, and I feel you should buy the things that are at this shop. But not everyone's going to feel that way. People are going to go like, what the fuck? What's the problem? You're going to let that guy over there who's using Wargame exclusive, or I don't know, list off every one of your favorite types of technically not GW, but obviously like Cromlech, toughest girls in the galaxy, like all this shit that's very obviously just GW merchandise but called a different name. Mantic, the faction, like you see what I mean? You run into this problem where you go like, that guy's allowed to play with those, but me who's made this myself is not allowed to play with those. That's kind of bullshit, buddy, and you're gonna run into problems. So I don't know. I'm just kind of venting my opinions here. I think the idea of going through and having officially sponsored and designed official designs that can be sold by companies is a way to go in the future. Like, GW releases the new release of whatever miniature, but then they also release a STL document. Like, I'm going to release this new Predator knockoff tank that GW is making, says GW. And with it, we're also going to release the STL. And you just charge a lot more for the STL. Like, that's basically it. You say, hey, we're going to sell this document. You embed something in it to be able to identify it as your document, so that if someone starts pirating and uploading it elsewhere, you have some way to identify it. Like that lawsuit that's going on with Google and the music lyric website. You do that so that if anyone were to illegally upload it, you can fucking slam the shit out of them. But then people who have 3D printers can just print them off themselves, and then GW still makes money off of it. And then you just got to watch out for people reselling them. So, like, everything else right now. Because I also think reselling is pretty sketchy. Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts, shotgun blasted across. I've seen a lot of chats coming up, so I'm going to scroll up a bit here. A guy selling blueprints on making 3D printed Oh my god, I'm talking so much. A guy selling blueprints on making 3D printed guns. Okay. I think you're talking about weapons for miniatures. We're going to assume that's what we're talking about. I'm good with it. As soon as printers become cheap quality enough to produce these models, it will be inevitable. At this point, companies like GW need to adapt by selling rules and patterns for models. How about models that are no longer available? I referenced that. It's going to be regulated by the government. There's too much money at stake. It's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard. No one wants to touch that question because it's weird. We'll see how that goes for regulation. You're probably right in the long term, and certainly for some things. Like, what happens when someone 3D prints a car? Like, I know it already happened at like a large scale, but what if somebody just does it on a non-commercial level? Like, someone just does it for themselves. How the fuck do you certify that guy? Like, can you let that thing drive? I don't know. It's just weird. That's like a silly example, but you get my idea, right? Then there's obviously the friggin' not miniature guns that you can print that raise some pretty interesting questions. We'll see how that goes too in the long term. Companies will simply release the files with rules for tabletop. Maybe, but that doesn't help the local shop owners that you want to go play at their store with. Like I kind of referenced there. That guy needs to sell models to make money unless he's going to be a web seller. But then if he's a web seller and there's no shops left, then you're not playing that game anyway. So maybe you go about it like the renting out the space at the hobby shop. Like, you pay a what's the term? Like a fee to be able to play using their tables and stuff. I don't know what I'm thinking of, but you know what I mean. Subscription, basically, to go. Talks about that. I have a 2D printer. Good for you. It's technically a 3D printer. Just one of those dimensions is fairly thin, proportionately to our ability to view dimension. Most people don't really go to the hobby shop now and just buy online. Hobby shop's future is as a social hub, as far as I can see. Yeah, maybe. Especially if we're going to keep having outbreaks. People aren't allowed to go outside. See how that goes. I think 3D printing is really great, especially for the future of things like terrain. Models are a little trickier due to everything you're mentioning. But the thing is, models come inevitably. Like, they're already here. They already exist. They can already be made. They can be made to high quality. Like, people have Patreons where they're making their own designed models and selling the STLs at a monthly basis. Super cool. 100% I support those folks. If I had a resin printer, I would already be subscribed to a number of Patreons that I've seen because they have really awesome models they're making. My printer is an FDM printer, which is like the laying down layers and layers of plastic really thin to build it up that way. Makes it able to do things at a relatively good rate and to relatively good detail, but not enough to make like a 28 millimeter human or monster. It doesn't do rounded edges very well, and obviously the layers just don't get that detailed, whereas the resin ones do, but they have a few kind of chemical issues and fume issues that I didn't want to take part in, so I just got this nice little thing that sits in my living room. Yeah, I wonder how it's gonna go. I was just curious. So, like, do you guys remember there was a major event that took place for 40K, and that one guy brought 3 3D printed or 5 3D printed, whatever number of printed it was, Forge World Custodes tanks that were lime green because that was the filament he used. They were pretty low quality prints, but you could easily identify exactly what that tank was, taped to cardboard. And they let them play. I don't know. I think that was garbage. I wouldn't have let that guy participate with them. Now you can make the argument that they're identifiable. They are what they are. You're not going to misunderstand what I am and what I'm using against you. My response would be they don't meet the minimum standard. And then they'll say like, oh, there's a painting requirement that's not listed. Make the argument that that model isn't actually a like model. It is a layer, like a pile of layers. Like get really janky with your definition of what it is, just for the sake of denying that. Make it harder to participate with it, I guess, because you'd be like, what base did it come with? Oh, it didn't come with a base, so you made one. Oh, so I guess you can't use it then, because that's not the base it came with. Like shit like that. But if they had been painted, if they were based, if they were looking like real models, nobody would have even known. Could have gotten away with that without saying a word, but they're being shitty and cheeky and using what they just happened to get really quickly, and that's how it turned out. But people were pissed. People were fucking outraged about this model, this 3D printing, and the low quality of it, and how it denigrated the things around it. Same with like that shitty terrain the one time you saw that. Please, I hope that's the same event, but when they had like styrofoam squares or like cardboard standing on its side to represent terrain at the one event because they were short terrain or whatever happened, and people made fun of that event too. But a 3D printer fixes that problem too. If you're the kind of person who wants to run big conventions and stuff where you need hundreds of pieces of terrain, well, you buy like 2 or 3 printers at $300 a pop. You have them run all year long, printing off buildings, and then you have a guy just priming, like spray painting, and then big brush, dry brush, all across them, and you're off to the races. You've got your terrain. I used to do tin casting for Jesus, where'd it go? Used to do king casting for friends and models that weren't available. Terrain and such would probably be 90% of all the printing for a good while. 3D printing is more intricate stuff. Is still pretty hard for consumer models. Resin stuff gets really good. You can get some pretty cheaply made resin printers that are making, like if I had to give it a scale on model quality, it's like slightly above Reaper Bones, maybe even a bit higher than that, but below injection mold plastics. But not at like high quality resin molds that can be made by commercial resin producers. Or you know what, actually tin is the way to go. I would say between a metal tin model and a Reaper Bones model, like in between that quality, which is pretty good. Like that's good enough for me. Can you play in GW tournaments with your own 3D printed models, and what are the rules on it? Fucked if I know. My quality engineer at work was super excited to find out a painted model since he's super interested in making them, but I'm a little sketched out by it feels I'm taking food out of people's mouths, as long as no one could tell. Someone did show up with some 3D printed Custodes tanks that weren't even primed. Oh, there it is. I just hit that, Flynn. 3D printers long term can be tied to some account on some service. Think games on Steam or other clients. You buy STLs as a service and only print them from the service. Yeah, that's a way to do it. Then you can get DRM and make it that, like, in order to print off this printer, whoa, what happened to the color code there? Why did everything get super bright? What the fuck? Or is it just me? Focus? Nope, it might have just been me. No, it wasn't. The video's now caught up. I would more think the future for the hobby would they turn into cafes where you also happen to play your games rather than being built around selling models. It's been years since I went to a hobby shop. They might have already gone that way. Nah, there's lots of hobby shops that are still hobby shops. There are gel support printers where you print a cell matrix, allows for more structures with less reinforcement waste due to not needing support while cooling. Well, that's neat. How do I feel about Recast? Well, Recast was the old boy 3D printer. Recast is 3D printing, but not in your house. I think Recast is scummy as well. But at the same time, if someone went through the trouble and bought it and painted it and treated it like a real model, fine. Do what you will. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. If someone like a GW store, for example, was able to identify recasts from non-recasts or prints from non-prints, and executed a policy that you're only allowed to use these, well, of course, that's their shop. They can make the rules of what they allow you to do in their store, and you'll have to deal with that. That's just the way it is. You could lie. You could get really good ones and then go in anyway. But that's kind of how I see that going. Am I dumb or are the guns missing the last part? Yeah, I snip off all of the parts on my las guns. Here, let me see if I can. So they all look like little sawed-offs. I liked it more. No real reason. Just gimmick. So like this is what a normal las gun looks like. I didn't cut that one because it was metal. Focus. 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 It's not going to focus. But you get the idea. There's like a barrel on the end. It's kind of a gimmick. It just identifies them as my army. I thought they looked cool. That's all. Oh, but then those aren't clearly identifiable las guns. Slippery slope, guys. Who knows? Who knows where it goes? Gonna be interesting. Next. Also, Flynn, I did see your comment earlier on about batch painting. Dude, I play fucking goblins, guard, orcs, tyranids. You think I give a shit about batch painting? I've painted thousands of miniatures, sometimes hundreds in a sitting. I agree the average consumer will likely use subservices with FTLs and DRM. More frequent users will go the same route of pirates on PC to avoid that. Well, the thing will always come down to which one is it easy enough. Like iTunes beat out the illegal music selling industry or the music downloading industry because it was easy to just fucking buy it for $1. Like that was the outcome there. And yeah, there's still pirates. There's always going to be pirates. Some people just don't have a lot of money. Some people just don't give a shit. That's just the way it is. Is Imperial Guard your new 9th edition or backlog? This is a redo. They already existed. Necrons are my new 9th edition army. I'm now just waiting to see. I didn't want to get an additional Indomitus box or anything like that. I like everything that comes in the Indomitus, but I don't really need more of it, other than maybe the regular warriors. But I want to see all the new shit that's coming out. I want to pick up some of the new models, and I gotta save my pennies if I want to do that. So I can't go buying everything I might want. Even though I want to like do more videos with Necrons, I just gotta wait. That's the way she goes. Because I am not on a mailing list. There we go. Did I do any 3D printing on your Wraith Knight? And when will we get to see it in action? You'll see all my new stuff soon. Those videos are on their way. I can see each model having a serial number attached to it. Oh yeah, that's... How the fuck are you going to do that? Oh, what the fuck, camera? Why do you keep doing this? Maybe that's the way they go. I have glue on my shirt. I just noticed it because I saw the camera. But like, what part of the model gets it? Are you going to have your mold that has to be changed after each one, or like stamp the mold after it's done before they go in with a different number? Or is it on the box? I don't know. I don't think that's the way it'll go. I think Baza B comment about music in the comparison. People will fight it, but people how to co-opt it will monetize it will end up winning. Napster came and went. Apple is still here. And that's exactly it. I agree. That'll be the way 3D printing goes. You'll sign up for your iPrint account as opposed to your iTunes account, and it'll have a list of all the STLs that you've purchased from all these different websites, and it'll be really easy to find them. It'll have a great search engine. You'll download them really fast. It'll sell them for relatively cheap. It'll have a little link where you can buy your iPrint brand filament that'll get shipped directly to your house, and it already has your credit card information, so you don't have to worry about that, and you know it's going to work with your printer because it was made by the same company, so you won't have to deal with any kind of stuff where like, oh, this one doesn't quite fit with that one and you've got to buy this specific brand, because you'll just have your iPrint brand. Like, I think that's the way it's going to go. The trick to it, though, is what I started with, where you're going to need to make it really easy to use. You need to make it that people will be able to just buy these things and use them. So the person who's making the printers. Like model companies, I don't know where that goes, but the people who are making the printers, they need to make those easier to use and more reliable, so you don't have to worry about having failed prints and shit like that. Because somebody who's going to buy a thing and then the thing doesn't work 40% of the time is going to be fucking pissed and will stop using the thing. Do I think Apple and GW can work together then? I don't know. Who cares? They can sort their own shit out. Apple and GW have been trying to work together on getting that fucking 40K app launched. I should do a poll. How are people feeling about? Can I do a poll during my stream? Is that a feature yet? If I go to this little thing. I can do timestamps, and that's it. Oh well, I tried. You really crushed Ash with the new Necrons. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I think that goes back and forth. I think it's a really balanced, like, mechanical set. Like, I think it goes both ways. I happened to win a bit more. But we'll see how that goes as kind of time goes on. Because I think the stuff that got added to the Space Marines in that box is really good. I think those Assault Intercessors are going to change up Space Marine armies. Like, I think a melee space... And then the change to Overwatch to kind of 1-2 combo it is going to be a very interesting new couple lists that you're going to see out of them. Where it's not just, I'm surrounding in my terrain feature with my captain, and I reroll everything to hit, and I reroll ones to wound, and I shoot you, and I never move, and then you die, and I win. I hope that fucking gets beat up a little bit. I've now played against the Dark Angel parking lot like 3 weeks in a row now, going over to the local hobby shop to play games, and it's just exhausting. Like, I haven't lost against him yet. Through a combination of like luck and army composition. This guard army that I'm in the process of painting and hopefully will be ready to roll in the next little bit is the one I tried the other night, and it turns out that it's got a very, very interesting, good counter to that little bubble of Spacemans. So I hope that changes things up. What's my favorite tabletop miniature game at the moment? 40K, Song of Ice and Fire, etc. Well, I've been playing 40K the most right now. So I guess arguably 40K. I have been having fun with it. So at the moment, I'll go with 40K. That's probably it, actually. That said, I know Clarence is coming around in the next little bit, as we're starting to be allowed to move places in Ontario. Oh yeah, I wanted to make a quick comment about this. A lot of people commented on the one video about masks. Masks in our videos. Some people were great, some people were, it's a hoax, some people were You don't have to wear them. They don't actually do anything. Some people, no comment at all. Here in my region, in Canada, it's mandatory. You must wear them. There was a place not too far away. They had a party, $100,000 fine. So it's not just because like I'm afraid of getting the cough. I'm legally required to, because our shop is technically a public place or Ash's place, whatever you wanted to say. So you have to wear the masks. So there you go. That's that little bit of insider knowledge. Don't listen to us Americans about masks. Dude, I don't listen to Americans about anything. You just watch Americans. I'm not going to get into that conversation. I don't really want to. Also, you get banned on fucking YouTube for talking about shit like that. Not that that bothers me, per se. Like, it is how it goes. But it'd be annoying having to rebuild and find all you guys again. One for good, two for bad. Oh, for polling. Yeah. Could have done that. Oh well. Too late. I forgot the question already. Am I hyped for the new Starship Troopers RTS? See, I saw an ad because I follow the Starship Troopers pages on different media sites, and I saw a little like thing pop up about it, but I didn't actually look into it at all because I assumed it would be unmitigated garbage, for a lot of reasons. Does it look good? Like, Tom, have you looked at it and gone, oh yeah, that's not so bad? But most things that are movie tie-ins are bad, and most things that are tied into movies that haven't had a good movie since the first one are also bad. So I was not super jazzed to go, yeah, that's the game that's going to be the one for me. But hey, maybe it'll be awesome. It looks awful. Oh, okay, well, fuck. There you go. Then no, I'm not hyped. Get out of here. Fuck it. Come in here. Are you excited about this thing that I think is trash? No, I'm not. Fuck off. That's funny. What are my preferred guard regiments? Mechanically or lore-wise? I'll wait for an answer on that one. The old Starship Troopers game by Micropause, tactical strat game, not the awful RTS from the mid-2000s, was great. From 98, kind of sucks. I get it. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I will bench my opinion until more comes out. Who knows? Maybe it'll be one of those like little gem games that you get where they didn't have a ton of money, but they made something that does something in a different way than other people do, and it's fun. Because the graphics and shit like that, they don't mean anything to me. Like, you guys have seen the games that I play. Things don't need to look nice for me to enjoy playing them. They just need to have an interesting thing going on. Alright. Armor plating also done. Time to use a different brush for a no, let's do the guns, and then we'll do the fingers and such. This one. Black Templar. I've enjoyed watching the Running with Rifles Starship Troopers mod. Yeah, that's the thing that exists. It'll still be better than Dawn of War 3. Not getting hit by someone is better than Dawn of War 3. Or, whatever. Fuck the analogy. Didn't really work. What changed my opinion about Age of Sigmar? What changed my opinion about Age of Sigmar? So, the thing about Age of Sigmar is on release, and I will say on release, it wasn't a game. It wasn't a game in the sense that there wasn't a way to be able to play a reasonably fair game against another person without creating your own structure with which to have that fair and balanced game. It was simply bring models you like and roll dice at each other and be silly. Now, and I think I said it even at the time, that's fine. That can be a thing. People will enjoy it. Good for them. But it ain't for me. There's not enough. I need to have structure with which to work in so that I can play the game as I feel I'm most effective at. There needs to be a puzzle to solve. There needs to be rules that I need to adhere to, which I can then try and exploit or find loopholes or effectively manage in order for it to be fun. And then we'll throw dice at each other, and we'll throw dice at each other with those things in mind. On release, before the General's Handbook, Age of Sigmar was just play with your toys in a toddler-esque fashion, where you go, I'm going to bring this big guy. Well, I'll bring this big guy. Well, I'm going to bring these little guys. Okay, well, then I'll bring a few of them too, and then we will throw dice at each other, and that is game. And that wasn't enough for me. It needed to have points. It needed to have power level. It needed to have something, a force organization chart, something basically that said, these are the limitations with which you can play the game. And then with that created, and a reduction in some of the silly rules, though not all of them. I like a little bit of silliness in all my games, a little bit of random. With that, you had a game that you could build into, you could learn about, you could figure it out. That was things that I found were why I didn't like it. It's why I said it wasn't a game, and I kind of stick by that. It's a game in the same sense that technically everything can be a game if you gotta get really shitty with definitions, but not in a structured system that a miniature game normally is comprised of. General's Handbook came out, Army Comp got added, points got added, there was a balance around it. You can argue yes or no about how many points a thing has and whether it's good or effective or not the right points. That's fine, but that's not the argument of does it have points, which is a different thing. Now rules have been made around that, and then why do I like it now is that 40K and Age of Sigmar are two sides of the same coin. They are nearly identical games with very minor but very severe changes that make Age of Sigmar a smoother game to play. And in those, they make it more interesting to me. Like if you gave me the option to play Age of Sigmar or 40K, I would play Age of Sigmar more than I would play 40K. I'm not going to say every time, but I would say a lot. And that's because it is an easy game to play. And when I say easy game to play, not because there's not interesting decisions being made, not because you're going to have to make calls and determinations about where you want to go and things like that, and what are the appropriate choices, but for a few things. One is that the predominance of melee over ranged in the game, model-wise, means that movement matters a lot more. And then scenario ties into that, with scenarios requiring you to get up and hold and live and blah blah blah. Two is that damage splashes over. When you hit a unit with a multiple damage weapon, that amount of damage is just spread through the unit based on how much they fail their saves. And that absolutely is appropriate in my opinion. And I wish 40K would have done it. You can argue about whether it's balanced, but you just balance around it and then it's problem solved. And then finally, the random turn order. I both hate and love the random turn order, just like everyone will, because sometimes the bear eats you and sometimes you eat the bear. I'm actually really opposed to Archaon's ability to determine the outcome of the turn order roll. I think that's really bad for the game. I hope they go back on that rule in some way in the future or reduce its effectiveness, because I think the psych out game and the risk management in do I push because I hope to get a double turn, do I reserve hoping that I'll not get or he'll get a double turn, like you have to plan with that potential in mind every time you make your turn. And I think that adds a lot of interest because like a 40k game, you start after turn one, maybe like round one, after round one or round two, the game is effectively decided. Every decision that you need to make from that point on only changes based on how successful or unsuccessful your dice rolls are. You're not going to change up dramatically the way the game's going to play. Because like imagine you're playing a game of 40k and you're playing against a group of knights, and after first round, he's halfway up the board, he went second, and he blew away all your shit, and he's about to charge you and kill you on the following round. What happens if then all of a sudden that knight player fucking goes again? That's going to change the whole outcome of the game. But then what about the other way, where he went first and he shot the shit out of you, and then you got some damage on him, but you weren't able to cripple it because he made all 3 of those 5-up invulns, and he's getting ready, he's looking at his army going, I'm going to fucking kill that unit, and the game will be over. And then all of a sudden you go again because he left himself in the wind, and you get to kill him. Like, it changes the game up. It is what it is. I know a lot of guys have been talking about this now, so let's go back a little bit. Remember the dumb look at your opponent if they look at you rules? Yeah, shit like that I didn't like. Sigmar did always just evolve into a melee. It did and it didn't. It evolved into a melee where you had to be in multiple places meleeing. It's an interesting thing. A lot of games, for sure, you're in a big scrum. But how you act within that scrum is interesting. And it's no different than saying 40 games turn into Napoleon Wars where you shoot each other from lines. Or now in bubbles because we want all of our aura buffs. Like, go watch Dark Angels fight Tau and tell me about how it's fucking stupid. Like, it is what it is. And I'm not mad about that. I'm not bashing either of those things. It's just that's what it is. I quit Warhammer when Age of Sigmar first came out, and only recently came back to give it a shot, which is how I got here, actually, and I was very surprised at how solid it became in the meantime, which is exactly my opinion as well. It was definitely fucking bad, and now it is good. That's where I stand on it. Which game do you prefer for the model line /style /lore? So this one's going to go back and forth on each of those, so I'll kind of do them one by one. For the model line, 40k definitely wins. 40k just has more. 40k has incredible kits across multiple factions. Really cool things. 40k also has Tyranids. Tyranids are hands down my favorite faction in potentially any sci-fi setting. They're like a perfect antithesis to insert your organization from a sci-fi setting. And they're so well developed thematically that they can be used anywhere. So 40k wins on that regard. For a style thing, Age of Sigmar is pretty fun with its weird... I don't know. 40k wins out on a lot of these, I'll be honest with you. Mechanically, gameplay-wise, Age of Sigmar, I think, wins out over 40k. Themes and styles and lore, 40k just has so much that it's going to win just because of attrition. But we'll see how that goes. I don't like the realms. I don't like that kind of shit right now because it's too vague. I need some solid maps. I need some locations. And I know they've started doing it, but they don't really matter yet. Like, I want to see like a sub-faction come out for one of the main armies that exist in it that are the equivalent of like the Armageddon Steel Legion. Things like that. Like, make a Stormcast Vault where it's not just like one of the named groups in the book, but do it for 2 teams. Like you get your named character from that location, and then the other faction that they're fighting gets their named location, and tie in a bunch of models that come out to go in with that. But we'll see. That's just time. That'll come out over time. Being a long time mate, me liking 9th at the moment due to still hasn't had a game since February. Still not sold on AOS. Hey, Lads Lounge. Yeah, well, you'll just give it time. I mean, if it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to play. There's lots of miniature games that you're not playing. I'm positive. You ever play the GW Lord of the Rings game? I have. I have a little Rohan army. I've always wanted to collect more models for that game, but it's like when the fuck am I ever going to play this? And every now and again, something happens, and I go on a binge, and I go through all the models, and I math it all out about exactly what I would need, and then I don't pull the trigger, and I don't do it. And then it just fades into the background again. So, yes, but no. My eyes are glazing over just thinking of that matchup. Right? Fucking Tau versus Dark Angels is boring as shit. Oh my god, it'd be awful. But you know what's not awful? Is a melee Tyranid army up against Blood Angel army. You're going to have some interesting shit going on. People are going to come after each other. People are going to charge each other. People are going to be moving across the board and figuring out where they need to be and looking at spacing and deep striking, and action will be happening all over the place. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a thing that is really cool. Thinking of doing a Custodes army. It's cheap, and the new companion points thing is nice. Around £230 for 2,000 points in UK. That's a pretty good deal. Obviously, it's expensive, but that's miniature games. Try it out. I think Custodians have won the Storm Shield game because of their special rule giving that +1 to invulns. I think that they're really interesting, and they're no longer, because of the +1 to saves, they're actually not going to get their fucking shit kicked in by Ogrins and autocannons, which was the things that I found laughable. Like, I play against Custodian armies and just dumpster them because I spam AP1 weapons. Like, you guys know this. I've talked about it multiple times in games, is that I find that AP -1 in 40k is undercosted. I still think it is. And that it's the best stat because it gets past all of the ultra tough guys while not letting them benefit from the things that they pay for that make them better. And I think that's great. The Storm Shield now kind of is a step in the direction to nerf the spamming of AP -1 and adding some value to what should be super valuable guys. Mentioning Lord of the Rings, I rewatched it recently and I was surprised at how badly most of the CGI has aged. Jurassic Park aged far better. Yeah. A lot of the green screening, blue screening, whatever, in the Lord of the Rings is not very good when you watch it again compared to current movies. But you know what? It's fucking awesome. So I don't give a shit. They need to give more love to the Imperial Guard. I hope they do a plastic Steel Legion / Orc box set. Cadia needs to be replaced. Yeah, I don't know. I think Guard are in a really good place. So long as the model kits are still in stock, you're still going to have people who just want to play Guard, and they can do whatever they want with the Guard armies. They can paint them World War style. They can go sci-fi, whatever they want to do. It kind of bums me out. Like, I like your comment about having another faction. Like, maybe, yeah, there should be an update on Guardsmen, but like, you're not going to give them the Primaris treatment. They're not going to get bigger. You'd want them to get like more dynamic. But the Guardsman box set is such a good box set, made up of lots of torsos, lots of arms, lots of posability, lots of gear and bits and equipment. Like, they're just solid. I don't know if they need it. Maybe if you wanted to do more of the like print on demand sub-factions, I think that's a cool thing, and I hope they do more of in the future. Come out with like a Steel Legion box set like they did for the Vostroyans. That'd be awesome, but other than that, I don't know. I don't think Guard really need the model treatment. They're just so iconic, I guess. They need. I would also really appreciate female guardsmen. Yeah, that'd be a neat thing. I wonder if they'll go that route, because that's always a big thing in the lore for Guard that exists. And like, I mean, to be honest, you can buy head swaps and it does the job fine. Like, yeah, they're a bit big ladies, but whatever, they would be if they're in the Imperial Guard. Like, Unfortunately, there's only one real good body frame that you're going to get lifting heavy rucksacks and running around, and it ain't going to be super buff, and it ain't going to be super soft. You're going to be a wiry, tough person, no matter what you are, if you're carrying heavy shit and running all the time. Wait, you don't want to see arms and legs for Deathcore Army in resin? I don't care for the Deathcore Army. I think they're too much of a gimmick. They have a... I don't know. I don't really have a good way to frame my thoughts around how I feel about them without it coming off as, like, fucking lame. So, we'll just leave that topic for now. I think they're kind of dumb. I wouldn't want to collect a Deathcore of Krieg army. I have some models that are the Hexenheim models from Victoria Miniatures that are essentially just the Deathcore models, and they're cool. They're fine, but I think it's a little weird. Yeah, Victoria Miniatures, if you're looking for female guardsmen, probably the way to go. I have a bunch of them right here. Here's the female guardsman from Victoria Miniatures banner bearer. The Arcadias. Pretty cool model. Does the job. Here's the officer of the fleet. Same website. Nice little quality miniature. Obviously it's been primed in a way to bring out some detailing, but there you go. I don't think this commissar is from there. I don't know where this commissar is from. Found a few good heads. Could argue the army would hide the portions. Yeah, I talked about that. Find them aesthetically pleasing, but otherwise uninteresting. Any other armory is 400 pound plus for the 2,000 points. The new models they teased last weekend are cool. Wondering what the Orc and Dark Eldar models are. Fucking new witches again. Maybe they'll make a new Orc boy. That's what I've been sitting on since last the Orctober event thing. Am I on the fence between points and power level? Not really. I think power level's the way to go. We'll have to see, though. I think it just makes it so much easier. Or make the points flatter. The fact that they didn't fucking incorporate weapons into the cost of guys. Like, I was hoping points would go the way of Age of Sigmar, where they're all, like, nice round numbers. And it's not a nightmare to build an army list. Fucking Battlescribe. Thank God for Battlescribe, okay? Like, maybe the GW Army Builder, whenever it gets its shit together, will be really good. Because, like, I'll subscribe to it. If it's a good product, I'll pay for it. I don't mind. But it's got to be a good product. And I hear it's not doing so well right now. I haven't downloaded it. I'm not going to fucking get into that. I don't live in the Yukon. They're going to make another Lilith. What hobby/wargaming channels do I enjoy watching? I do not watch hobby-related material on my spare time. I don't do it. I don't watch other YouTube channels that make this content. I don't watch videos about this content. I don't do that. I'll read articles from now and again, and every now and then I'll see a video about it. I think the closest thing I could say for a YouTube channel that I enjoy watching that is Astartes. I really liked, and I like the Emperor's text-to-speech device. But neither of those are really like hobbying things. They're more just like in the setting, and their stories in and of themselves. I don't like where the Emperor's text-to-speech device has gone over time, which is kind of a bummer, where it's become its own little like narrative and story. I liked it more as the absurdity of what the 40k universe is from the perspective of essentially a straight man, which is to say the Emperor. So there's that. I don't know if the Hellhammer is a must bring. Probably a super heavy tank though. Oh, and you play Rowhammer. Are you always a fan of the Cav armies? I used to love your Bretonnian army battle reps, especially when you did that peasant-only army list. Yeah, I love the Cav stuff. I would play an all Rough Rider army in Imperial Guard if I could get enough horses. The problem is Guardsmen are fucking chunky, so you gotta use very specific horses. So, like, my Guardsmen that you see that are riding horses are on Chaos Marauder horsemen. That's the horse that they're built off of, which I think works pretty well. Based on the scale of Marauders versus Guardsmen. But those horses ain't easy to come by these days, so I'm kind of shafted in that regard. Like I looked at my Rohan horses as like, could I turn you guys into Guardsmen riding horses? And the answer is no, not really. I mean, you could, but they're going to look weird. They're going to look like dudes riding ponies into combat. Have I watched Red Letter Media? Yes, I have. I knew what you meant there about that, Demian. Favorite Imperial Guard and Space Marine chapter lore-wise. Lore-wise? I don't know lore about fucking Imperial Guard regiments. God damn it, camera. Stop being stupid. There we go. And Space Marine chapter. I don't know if I can make a comment about my favorite Space Marine chapter. I've been making a ton of jokes about Space Marine chapters and what they say about people recently. And I don't know if any of the people who I made those jokes to are going to watch this video. And then I'd have to fucking explain myself. I don't actually think I have a favorite Space Marine chapter. There's like moments where I like them all. Or like I like aspects of them, but collectively not really. I don't know, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't take the 40k lore very seriously. I like stories in the 40k lore, but I don't like the lore itself. I don't know if that makes sense. Because the lore is nothing but a collection of stories, but you get what I mean, I think. Where I like the tales that can be told in the universe, not necessarily the logic of the universe itself. So like I don't much care for the idea of the Dark Templars as this like unending permanent fucking rampage force, but I really like Hell's Reach as a story. But then I question whether or not I like it just because it's got the Steel Legion troopers who are trying to just like fucking survive, or is it because of the fucking Black Templars? Like I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough to really make an opinion on it. I just know that I like it. So, how about that? Let's say Steel Legion and Black Templars, because I like that book. Yeah, you got your Incommodus Crons painted up real fast? Yeah, man. It's super... Oh my god, camera. I'm gonna fucking have a problem if you keep doing this shit. I wonder if I change my lighting. Will that fix it? I have this fancy lighting. Watch this. Meh. See you later, Lads Lounge. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, you could do Rough Riders on bikes. I think that could be done. But then I gotta collect Space Marine bikes, and they're gonna be on the extinct list really soon. You say you get most annoyed when the things don't happen when they should happen. I get most annoyed when someone's fucking shitty about things. Everyone gets mad when the dice don't go the way you want them to be. I get specifically mad when someone's going to be shitty about the way the game is being played. That's what riles me up. Just play the game. It's just a silly game. Fight with your models. The models die. Take your models off. Don't get upset. Like I said, it's a series of games. It's not one game. When you play with your friends and you play at your hobby shop, you're playing all. Not only are you playing the person you're playing right now, you're playing all of the people you could potentially play in the future. Don't be a dick. Play, have fun, have your ups, have your downs. Get mad because you didn't roll well, but don't be an asshole about it. I'm actually, I know I'm running out of time. I'm at the 2 hour mark. I shouldn't have taken those breaks. I'm already on the skin stage, which means we only have wash left, really, and the basing. So we're grinding away pretty well right now. I used to, back before Total Warhammer got its update, where the turns go faster, I used to paint a model in between each turn sequence in that game. But now that it's been fixed, I lost my ability to paint. Because I'm like, well, I gotta stop and play more game. Gene Stealer called bikes? Yeah, but now those exist as a thing, right? So you get weird instances there. Have you read Dante by Guy Haley? No, I have not. So, like, the list of GW books that I've actually read are fair. That I watched the Hell's Reach video series. I skimmed through it. I've read the books, and I'm a pretty content reader. Like, I read a lot, or have read a lot, and read fairly quickly. So, for me, reading a book is honestly faster and easier than just watching a video on it. But I did skim through it. It was pretty cool. Props to the guy who made it. That would have been a fucking ton of effort. Yeah, it's weird with the Gene Stealer called bikes, because, like, they exist as a thing now. So, like, if you wanted to turn them into guard bikes, I don't know. Rough Riders should ride horses. I guess I'm just going to be that guy. I want horsemen. They have lances, for God's sakes. The only other bike conversion I would allow is Star Wars clone troopers from the 2000s animated, like the cartoon version, when they're all fucking riding on pikes. That's the other one I would let. Could you cannibalize the horses and legs from the Pistoliers? They're too small. They're not, like, because the Pistolier horse is not the same as the Marauder Warhorse. We'll see. Maybe I'll get them at some point. One day. Maybe I'll 3D print some horses. Dun dun dun. It's getting hot in this room. I'm going to have to open the door so the air conditioning can get back in. And there might be some background noise. Guardsman. Oh no, we got some of your face on your gun. Fuck it. We've gone too far. Alright. Let's open this up a bit. Would you be interested if they did a Total War 40k? Fucking yeah, I would be. That'd be great. I'd play the shit out of it. I'd, like, narrow it down so that it's very much one planet, and you control some of the factions on that planet. The problem with the making 40k games is the problem that Dawn of War ran into, is that everyone wants their faction to be part of Dawn of War. So every conversation you have about it is like, but it didn't have X. It didn't have Y. And you can't make a narrative with every faction in 40k. Look at fucking Dark Crusade. Dark Crusade is so dumb. Like, everyone just shows up. And I didn't even play Soulstorm, so I can only imagine how much worse it got as time went on. Doesn't say that they're not great games, except for Soulstorm. But it's like, it doesn't really work. And that's the weird thing. Like the fantasy world, everyone lives in the fantasy world. But if you did like a 40k based Total War that was taking place on Armageddon, which would be awesome, you don't have everyone there. You could have a lot of people there. You could have orcs, you could have guard, you can have space marines, you can have mechanicus, you can have chaos, you can have orcs. You're not going to have Tau. You're not going to have Dark Eldar. You're not going to have Tyranids. They're just not all going to be there. That's just the way it is. And if you try and spread that game to multiple planets, I think you're going to have a bad time. Or you go the other perspective, and rather than like settlements, the settlements are planets, and it's played on that scale. But I don't think you should do it that way either. I think one planet with limited factions is the way to go. The flyers were dumb. I just wish Dawn of War 3 was just Company of Heroes 2, but 40k. That's what Dawn of War 2 was. Dawn of War 2 was Company of Heroes 2, but 40k. Also, yes, straight from the pot on YouTube, because Owen doesn't paint. Yeah, it gets really contrived if you're trying to find reasons, because like the thing is like Total Wars, they do have a plot for the factions that are in them. I guess kind of on some of them they're just like unite the faction, but a lot of them have some kind of like character, and he has a goal. Or he's like the leader of a nation or whatever. Like even in Total War Warhammer, like which is obviously the one to compare against. And if you did that with the 40k one, you'd have this weird like bleed over if people were on all of the factions were there. Stellaris is the only way you can make a 40k game. See, but don't do that. What you do, in my opinion, is you make the fundamentals of the game and you design the world map. So like, let's do it with Armageddon as my example. So you make a map out of that has a number of cities, the hives, that are the major cities. And like you could even subdivide the hives into multiple settlements within one big kind of mega thing, where you're fighting over multiple sections of the hives. You'd have to kind of change up the Total War formula a little bit to make it work, but hey, you're already switching to a mostly shooting game anyway. It's going to change as it is, like it did with Napoleon and blah, blah, blah. So you do that. You create these hives. You create all of these outposts and watchtowers and systems and like outer rim cities. Some of them are held by Chaos Cultists. Some of them are held by straight up Chaos Marines, because the Alpha Legion is there fucking about with the Imperials, trying to incite demon summonings because they want Angron to come back or something contrived, but that's okay. It's easy to get chaos into every Imperial story. You then have orcs, obviously, because the orcs are in the south in the jungles and all over the planet, and they're set up in their systems, use the fucking Warhammer Total War rules for orcs essentially, but make them more 40k-y. Change up the monsters for robots and tanks, blah blah blah, easy. Then you go and add in the Space Marines. You make them horde factions, so that it represents the fact that they're getting troops in from space, and that they're not really a force that holds onto cities. They just liberate them for Imperials, and Imperial Guard and them take those cities. And there you go. You basically have a game at that point. And the operation for the Imperials, you play either as the Guard, you break it up into 2 regiments or something like that. You break up the Space Marine chapters, because fucking everybody shows up at Armageddon at some point. You're going to get Space Wolves, you're going to get Blood Angels, you're going to get Black Templars, you're going to get, what are they called, Salamanders. Like, you're going to get a bunch of people there. And then you make a custom one as well. Like, you have one person who can play their own chapter. And then you give them their own little tech trees that represent their own abilities, and then you tie the tech trees to like give them a currency that's based around like honor system. Like Space Marines have been burning down these orc villages or winning these orc, like give them sort of the WOG mechanic, like the old one, where as they start winning, they get stronger, and they call in more heavy equipment kind of thing. I don't know. I'm spitballing. This is all off the top of my head. So you do that. You make that game, and then you do a second game or an expansion or something, and it just goes to a whole new fucking planet, and you add in a new faction. Where you go, okay, so here we are on this planet, and it's having a Tyranid invasion. And the game is set on multiple hive cities, multiple townships, water. You have the Imperials there again. You have a Space Marine chapter. But then you add in, like, the Sisters of Battle are there as a faction. And they can control certain aspects of the city, and they can build their own little faction features. You have Gene Stealer cults that are getting around and getting into things. And then you also have the Chaos cults, because once again, Chaos cults are everywhere. There's always cultists. And then you have a countdown timer until the Tyranids arrive. So, like, you know they're coming, and in 30 turns, or 150 turns, or whatever, the Tyranids arrive. And the Tyranids spawn a bunch of fucking bases all over the place. Or they come in as horde armies, however you want to do it, of just unstoppable fucking tides. And you make it where the amount of shit that arrives on the first wave and like the subsequent waves is reduced based on the strength of the Gene Stealer cults at the time of the invasion. And then obviously the Gene Stealer cults rise up, and then you have a bunch of Traitor Guards units, that like a bunch of guard regiments that were on your side at the beginning. They switch sides, and then there you go. You have a whole little interesting campaign, and you play that out, and it's fun. And you make a new game. You do the next expansion. This time, it's a straight up, you're fighting on Cadia. This is nearing the end of the final battles. Abaddon's army with his demonic legions and shit are attacking, and fucking Space Marines and Imperial Guard of all types are there. Inquisition members are there. Special characters, named characters, legendary lords of all types on both sides. Eldar show up to try and support the humans on the ground, so you can bring Eldar in. And then there's like a Necron force that's owning, like, that is in one section of the planet. And you fight, and you defend and fight over this planet. And then if you wanted, you could do like a funsies, everyone gets thrown onto one planet, Mortal Empires-esque. There's no plot, there's no story, we're all just here. And you straight up say that this is the other faction. And then that way you still get everything together. But you do it bit by bit, and you do it in ways that are structured around a theme and an idea and a real, like, system. And, like, you do mini campaigns like the Beastmen campaign, but on different factions, on different planets, for different things, with different endgames, tied into things. And that's the thing. Gene Stealer cults could absolutely be played with Skaven mechanics. You change some names, you change some figures, but you just do that. I think the most difficult thing that you'd have to do in the conversion there is, how does combat work? Because shooting in Total War is kind of dumb. It's just line up and shoot, and a sci-fi shooting is not the same thing. You'd almost be better off going closer towards a Company of Heroes-esque style of fighting, because I think that best represents 40k fighting on the smaller scale. But of course it's Total War, so you want to play huge scale. So how do you do it? And I don't know. I have no idea. Like, how do Space Marines fight in large numbers? And when I say large numbers, I'm talking in the hundreds, because that's what you'd want to have. Unless you went like Space Marines are like fucking super ultra elite, and then their regiments are made up of like 5 guys, but they fight like a squad of 50 guardsmen, which you could go that way too. And I think that would be another way of doing it. But once again, you'd have to find a way to make, like, the maps would have to be very well designed. You'd have to have well-made line of sight blocking things. You'd want them to potentially be bigger. Maybe you make an emphasis on transports. Do like a mechanic where your army can only travel, or like your army travels notably faster for each unit of transports that's in your army to represent a mechanized company. So like when your armies are traveling around the map, X number of units in your army can be carried by transports, things like that. Whiskey Tank. Whoa, is this stream real? It is a real stream. We're just hanging out, making some guardsmen. I always imagine Space Marines fight large-scale wars as hordes. Each squad has a kill zone and they move always forward. See, I don't see it like that, and that's going to be an issue because there isn't really fluff to support how Space Marines fight in battle-scale fights. Maybe there is. Maybe someone out there can show me it. But where they get into the nitty-gritty of how their tactical squads actually function en masse. I'm not going to paint him. Get fucked, troll. I need my wash. So at this stage, we've painted the pants, the armor, the faces, and the guns. So I'm going to break out that sweet, sweet Nuln oil, the talent bottle. And we're going to goop it all over these boys. And then we're going to go back over and paint up their little guns. What brush do we want to use? What do we got? Are you a nice brush for soaking my dudes? Yes. Horus Heresy is the closest we have. And that's Space Marines fighting Space Marines. Because it talks about them fighting like the McCrag stuff when they fight Tyranids, where they're just like on the battlements shooting constantly and stuff. But like, is that it? Do Space Marines form like a gun line and just shoot? Or do they... Like, I've seen it where Space Wolves in the Horus Heresy stuff, they, like, sneak into places and attack all over the place. I don't know. It's weird. We'd have to figure it out. And, I mean, someone who's paid a lot of money would figure it out for the Total War game. Well, maybe not a lot of money, but they'd be paid anyway. More than I'm fucking being paid to ramble about this shit. So all in all, I guess my thoughts on it are, yes, I would like a 40k Total War game. I have ideas about how I would want that game to be made, based on my knowledge of the lore and what I think the people who play these games would want from it. And the best way to do that would be along those lines. Make it episodic, tie it into specific factions in specific theaters, and then clump all the theaters together into a gimmicky, play whatever you want. Starship Troopers novel style, where they're in a massive line with hundreds of meters between each and they just kill everyone in the sector. They're not really battle brothers then, are they? They're more like battle compatriots. Another problem would be chapters having totally different fighting styles. And sure, but you can incorporate that stuff into a video game. That's doable. You can make it that, like, this faction of these Space Marines, like, and I mean, obviously the other way to do it is you just limit it. You make it that there is only one faction of Space Marines here. And they're the Ultramarines, or they're an Ultramarine successor. That's another way you could go about it. And that's not bad. Like, don't be mad about that. That'd be cool. You'd still be happy with it. Let's be honest. If it was made effectively, and then you do mini campaigns where it emphasizes other chapters, or you do another update where it goes into a different region, things like that. But that's it. That's my 2 cents on that regard. You're welcome to disagree or input your own opinion. Let me know what you think. What would you want from a Total War Warhammer but 40k? Fuck, it's such a bad name to say. Total War Warhammer. Total War. Why isn't it just Total Warhammer? I don't know. It is what it is. I think Mandalore got really mad about that. Not really mad, but made jokes about it. Assembling some Cawdor for Necromunda while watching. A classic PC game that series that would be great for 40k is Close Combat. World War II setting normally, but good for 40k. Should have been Total Warhammer. It should have been Total Warhammer. If you make it Total War, it makes sense to have a few options given in a faction. So one chapter probably isn't the way they play, but it would work. I mean, you do the same thing they did with the Legendary Lords, right? Where you make it that you could say, like, you're looking at your loading screen, right? So right now you look at your loading screen, you see Karl Franz, you see Gelt, and the Priest one. And each of them gives a specific positive and negative, and then you just do the same thing. So you're like, Space Wolf Captain, whatever his name is, like whatever one is there, Grimnar, whomever, whatever, Dogman the Third, and he gives access to a special unit called Blood Claws, and reduced upkeep on Assault Marines, and his unit gets access to a specific deploy or movement style called like On the Hunt, where they aren't identified when they're moving. And then Ultramarines don't have any access to special units with their commander, Giant Blue Man, and instead they get the ability to have a reduced upkeep on all basic intercessor units or whatever. And they also can call in this specific tactic that lets them redeploy their units as needed or something. Like, you see what I mean? Like, that's how you could incorporate the chapter tactics without having to make entirely new models and shit, or at least not very many. Once again, trying to structure it within the current Total War structure without going like off the rails and making a totally new system. Yeah, like you could Azrael, you're gonna or Samael, where you can use Samael like there's Dark Angels are a faction in your game, and you can choose between Azrael, Samael, or Belial or Belial, whatever the fuck his name is. Samael and Belial each have an ability to take, whereas Azrael, who is the base guy, he gets a reduced upkeep on all the basic units in the Dark Angels as like his thing, and whatever, like he gets a few specific basically rights, like call-in effects, because he's Dark Angels. He's limited in the number of Terminators and fast bikes that he can take, and he can't take any hover bikes, but Samael can, and he's unlimited, and Belial can take as many Terminators as he wants, but they don't get the reduced upkeep on the normal units, and they don't have the same faction-wide call-ins that the Azrael got. Like, just shit like that. And, I mean, like I said, I'm just spitballing here, so who knows? I'd like it to happen, but I don't think it will. But if it did, here's a way you could go about it to still kind of please people with intricacies. And it will never be what you want. Let's be honest here, guys. Like, people who are fans of these chapters aren't even necessarily fans of the actual chapter. They're fans of what they like about that chapter. Like, you're not a fan inherently of Blood Angels. You're a fan of this aspect part of the Blood Angels as a total sum of the lore that exists about the Blood Angels. And if they emphasize a part that you're not that keen on, or they don't emphasize a part that you are keen on, you're not going to like it the way you might have if you just didn't worry too much about that. So, there you go. Most sub-factions in 40k don't have enough to satisfy the masses. They don't. Not necessarily. I think that's why Dawn of War, for the most part, had avoided named characters. They made their own characters up. I suddenly feel called out. Well, you brought it up, so I started calling you out. And you could just make it up. You drew attention to your name. You've been seen, Dark Angel. Painting Guardsmen, getting these guys done. Obviously, I'm not covering the entire model in the wash, just the remaining gray bits and the armor plates. I don't want to do it over the pants again because they already kind of have the detail that I want, and I'll just wash it out if I continue to put more stuff on it. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like legendary lords in Total War, kind of period. I wish they'd go back to where you just had lords and they were no different than anyone else, and it was more generational, like the old Total War, medieval Total War, like, and the Rome Total Wars and the stuff like that. I don't like the way they've gone, where you've got these like superhero mythic figures. I wish they were just dudes, and then I was a kingdom, not a person, because that's what I feel like in these new ones. Fantasy, like Warhammer Total War, it makes more sense because they are larger than life in a larger than life setting, but the reality ones, meh. But even then, in the larger than life setting, especially if it went 40k, I want to be able to just be making my own lords. I don't want to be tied down to existing lore, because so much of 40k is make your own shit, is create your chapter. They're your dudes. Like, that's what makes them so cool. They've had the wins that you liked, and there's models you like and didn't like because they rolled well, or you painted them really well, or you made up your own little backstories for them, or whatever it is, or they made their own backstories out of the games you've played. That guy's really fucking unlucky. That guy always dies first. This tank has been super successful, and like, you treat them differently based on that because they're your dudes. And that's something that I think the Total War Warhammer game lost to some degree. They're not your dudes. They're dudes that work for the faction that you're just kind of aiming at. Which is kind of a downer about the whole game, I'll be honest. Like, why can't I just paint my fucking army? Let me change the colors of my dudes. Let me make my own lord. I don't want to play as Karl Franz. I want to play as fucking Scipio, the Empire Lord who no one really remembered, and he's not very good. And then he dies, and his kid takes over. But the Chaos Invasion is still happening, and his kid's a drunk. And he doesn't really deal with the Empire's problems very well. So the Empire's got a lot of public order messes. So you're trying to figure a way to get him killed, but he only periodically listens to your orders, and like stuff like that. Things that get silly. That's what I want. You want him to die, but you don't have an heir lined up. And you might lose control, and it might go to a different house. Ugh. Hey there, Chris. Pretty good. Getting the paint on tonight. Just about painted up 20 Guardsmen over the course of about 2.5 hours. I'd say 2 hours, but it's been a bit longer. I took that break. Or those couple breaks. We're getting through it. I'll also post pictures tomorrow, guys, for anyone who's interested. Once I'm in some better lighting at the studio or something, of how these guys and the potential tanks that I will try and paint tomorrow turn out. So you can get an idea of what this scheme looks like, and obviously you can see how much time I did or didn't put into them. And then you can judge for yourself whether you feel that this style of painting would work for you or not. Don't really care. Crusader King flashbacks intensify. Yes, that also exists. Yep, there you go, Damien. Damien says, when I first got into 40k early 2000s, which is late 3rd edition, I made Necrons, but I also played Chaos Space Marines on the side. I remember naming a group of Chosen and loving that squad to death. And that's it. You had a game where these guys did really good, game over game, they were fun. You made their own little backstories up for them, and over time they became a thing in and of themselves. They weren't just Chosen. They were the hammer's fist that they held the objective that time till well past they should have, or they killed a hive tyrant in one round of combat, or whatever it was, or they held that one flank of the board when they shouldn't have. Or the other side of the coin, they just instantly die because they're fucking the shitty group and they crumple at the first sign of failure. You get it. Alright. Let's paint some gold. We got some fists. My first squad was a bunch of Space Marines that got swept off the table first game ever against my friend's Tau on turn 1. That's how she goes. I want Ride to Hell Retribution, but you're a Space Marine biker? Yeah, I bet you do. I want Duke Nukem Forever, but you're actually a Custode, and then the rest of the game is identical. They don't even change the names. They just call him Duke the whole time. That'll be your 40k tie-in. Get what you deserve. Alright. First coat of that's down. So, the last bits that I need to do. So let's grab one of these dudes. So here's what they're starting to look like. Focus. Wow, the lighting's terrible here. Well, you'll see when I take pictures in better light. We need to do the bases. So usually for bases, I just get out one of the brown washes or contrast paints, or I'll just use a really watered down. Where are you? Doom Bull? That'll work. Oh, I already have one out. What is this one? Mornfang Brown. So I've watered this one down quite a bit, and I keep a lot of water on my brush when I do it. And we just let it glob onto the little bit of sand that I glued on there early on, back before they got primed. And just paint the whole base. White Scars Bikers charging in Orcs in a Total War game sounds amazing, right? I was thinking back, Flynn had mentioned it fairly earlier on when we were talking about the rule of 3 and force organization charts. He made a comment about modern armies don't necessarily have like multiple HQs and stuff like that as an incentive to how building lists should work. Guard actually don't function that way. You have tank regiments and you have mech regiments and artillery regiments that don't have, like, they entirely depend, like, even to a larger degree than like our current world armies have these things. They're completely like independent, and they require multiple regiments having to come together to make a functioning army, because without it they don't really function. They're just standalone. They do the one thing and that's all they do. I guess they've all got las guns. Guard are basically modern armies taken to the extreme, though. Yeah, they kind of are. I mean, it is cool, the idea of a Total War 40k, but there's a lot of stuff that 40k could get into that are other mediums, but they just, it tends to be fucking shitty of it. Let's all look back on the Ultramarines movie. That exists. Don't ever forget. There's an official Warhammer 40k movie about what Space Marines are like. And they're fucking idiots. They don't stop talking. I'll be honest, the number one thing, the thing that pulls me out of all of the fan-made videos and lore and stuff, is when the fucking Space Marines talk. Oh my god. I hate it so much. That's why I love the Astartes videos so much. It's because they just don't fucking say anything. They just, like, you could argue that they're talking to each other over the, like, intercom, like, in like, their communications between themselves. But they don't talk out loud. And why the fuck would they ever talk out loud? Especially when they're out doing things. Don't forget 40k chess. Yes, that also exists. Video games are a whole other can of worms. There's a lot of shit fucking Warhammer video games. But yeah, goddamn, I hate it. I hate it. Hey, I had fun with that movie despite how bad it was. Hey, I'm not saying that you can't enjoy things that are bad. You just need to remember that there's still, like, it's not very good, but you like it, and that's fine. What is that? They're making an Eisenhorn TV series? Yeah. How do you think it's gonna go? It's gonna be bad. My pessimism is very strong when it comes to media. I also know that Space Marines view wearing helmets as a sign of cowardice. Yeah. Yeah, that exists too. I like the article on the reasonable Marines. I think that's pretty funny that exists out there. The idea of a Space Marine faction functioning like a reasonable group of people and fighting in a way that makes sense, that isn't just stupid. But yeah, the talking, oh my god. Are these guys getting Valkyries? Not yet. They're gonna start off in Chimeras and then move on to Valkyries in the future. This list is actually a nightmare of flamethrowers. These guys are because I'm required to bring troops. I guess I'm not really required, but I'm opting to bring them so I don't get penalized as much. Go. Part of the problem with 40k, I think, is that it's absurd in so many ways. In the old days, they embraced it, but nowadays they try and play it straight and pretend it's all super serious. Yeah, that's definitely a problem. Or if not a problem, then a challenge, a thing that makes it more difficult. I think somebody back there asked how to talk to somebody about miniature games. And like tell them that you play miniature games. Tie it to board games. Board games have become basically just accepted as a way to play and like entertain yourself with others. They're not the like nerdy back corner things anymore. Fucking everybody plays board games nowadays. Miniature games are just board games to the next level. And so you go like, yeah, it's basically just a really complicated board game. You just play it on a table instead of on a strictly defined board. That's the way you go about it there. Yeah, the Harakoni are definitely an airborne type regiment. But we'll get there. I mean, they're called the Helldivers. I think it's more of a split. Some love it absurd, some love it straight. Right, but the setting in it inherently is absurd. So to try and play it straight is absurd. Like, the premise of so many of the conflicts and the things that are going on, and like the idea of we're at total war, or the whole there's nothing but war. Like, there couldn't be. You couldn't do it. It wouldn't function. There has to be places where just fucking nothing's going on, and they're just producing things. And like, people would change the system in order to make it function in a different way. Like, they don't have the technological level to be able to properly police and control people in the way you would be required to, in order to subjugate the societies that exist in the vast multitudes that exist, to the degree that it implies that they're being subjugated in. So for example, in Dune, the book series, the God Emperor was able to really control people because he controlled the ability to travel from planet to planet, because they needed the resources that he had, and then he controlled the police force that helped control that travel, what travel he did allow. 40k doesn't have that limitation. Anyone can fucking go anywhere so long as they've got an astropath. And astropaths are just humans. You can make more astropaths. So like, what's to stop thousands and thousands of humans setting up their own whole colonies on asteroids in the middle of fucking nowhere? Like, they clearly have the technology to terraform planets, or at least to live in places where the planet is otherwise inhospitable. Why are you not building hives on asteroids in the middle of fucking nowhere space and just avoiding all of this shit entirely? Like, why live on planets? It's not really that much more effective than anything else, especially if you have the ability to live on things that don't require planets, and you have the technology to support that. Even if warp travel was monopolized by navigator guilds, all you have to do is get one navigator. Like, it can be, that can be overcome, and there have to be enough navigators out there that regular commerce is taking place, because they clearly have regular commerce. So like, they could monopolize it to some degree, but all you have to do is get access to the gene itself, or a person with the gene, and you can create your own navigators after that. Yeah, or you just wait. Like, let's say you're planetary governor. Any psychers can try and navigate. Oh, even more so then. There you go. But like, you're a planetary governor, and the latest ship arrives, and you just say, no, you can't leave. And you just take the navigator, and then you and all of the people that are with you, that your planet has decided to secede, fucking pack up their shit and fly off to an asteroid in the middle of deep space. They finish building their hive city again, that supported them on the toxic death world that they were living on, and now they just live in deep space. And they turned off the ships, they killed all the psychers, and they're gone. That human colony just disappeared one day. And it would take monumentally unlikely odds of some faction of other species, whatever, moving along and stumbling across this rock in the middle of nowhere that you happened to be on in that empty part of space. It is what it is. Like, the 40k lore is what it is, and I like it for what it is. I like the stories that come out of it more than I like the premise itself. That's kind of my stance on that. I don't know. I think we're winding down now, guys. I'm running out of things to really feel like talking about, and we're nearly done most of these dudes. The only thing is the black strip after this, and a little bit of highlights on the shoulder pads. But for the most part, we ground through these guys. We got them painted up, and yeah, that's how that went. Oh, I guess one last thing on the idea of the 40k universe and just fucking off. Why are the Eldar still in the galaxy? Like, do the craft worlds require resources from planets? Why don't you just leave? And if some already have, why did the others stay? Unless they're actively trying to rebuild the Empire, just fucking go away. Just go fly off. Build new craft worlds. I think they mentioned dudes doing the asteroid thing. I just remember the Scion Codex having something like that. See, the thing is, though, is I'm confident that the asteroid that they did put that on, having no concept, no content or rather, having no idea of the content you're referencing, I have a suspicion that it's in a solar system. That's going to be my wild guess about that. So if somebody can find that story, or if someone comments on this video later on, I have a feeling that that story will take place in a solar system. That an asteroid circling some planet or in the belt of some planetary system is where that group was living. I'm talking, go get a rock in the middle of fucking nowhere and live on that. And live on the inside of it and try and see if you can find a way to really reduce the amount of heat that's being emanated from it. Not that anyone else can. I think they became space pirates. Why be a pirate? The Eldar are trying to rebuild the Empire. Build it somewhere else. You live in a galaxy where bad thoughts become reality. Time to move to a new galaxy. Ash and I rambled about that on one of his videos at one point. About the long-term, like, where do you go with the story of 40k? We were making wild predictions about what you could do with the lore. And taking 40k on the road. Bring the Emperor back, and look around and say, oh, galaxy's fucked. And they build, like, Mass Effect Andromeda-esque super ship and just leave. Are you trying to tell me that all celestial bodies don't circle stars? Tyranids are all around? See, but Tyranids may be coming from all directions, but that doesn't mean that Tyranids are a 100% blocking sphere surrounding the galaxy. And if they're that, then fucking it don't matter. The amount of biomass that they have coming in, then the story's over. Like, why even fight? There's so many of them, and they're so dense that they're just a literal body wall. They walk over everything, everywhere, and all the time, in every direction, all at the same time. Like, can you imagine? Like, you can't even imagine. He squats in a Space Hulk. There you go. Let me just get this guy's base painted. I don't know. That was a good chat, though, guys. I appreciate those of you who came out, stuck around, made it all the way to the end here. Chaos will eventually find the colony, even on a deep space asteroid. Well, that gets into the conversation about how Chaos functions in the Warhammer 40k universe. But we're not going to talk about that tonight. We're going to call it for now. Let me see here. What if we take this light? Oh, Jesus, I'm dropping stuff. What if we take this light and we do one of these? And we take this here camera. Steady as she goes. Now we're gonna focus. No? Nope, it ain't gonna happen. Well, guys, you're out of luck. You'll have to wait until the pictures come out. Hey, you can see his golden fist, though. Look at how fucking useless you are, camera. Alright, well, I guess we'll just leave it at that. Go right up close. I mean, it kind of works. It still looks weird on the camera. It's like blurry and the lighting's off. But whatever. Fuck it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you next time. We will hang out for more streams soon. And yeah, have a good one.